Welcome everyone.
Hello?
Just a second. There we go. We are live now. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. All right. Some people coming in. Let us know the region you belong to.
Hello?
We will wait a few more minutes and to let other people join.
Okay.
Hi, Randy. Brilliant. Okay. So, okay. Hello everyone and thanks for joining. So let me start with my small introduction. So yeah, my name is Aryan and I'm one of the Dean Alchemists at Covalent and have been working with other deans in terms of getting these workshops started. So yeah, we have Promise Wilson who's going to tell us about learning disabilities. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask in chat or Q&A. So without any delay, I want to hand over this to Promise. Promise, you can start.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this short workshop on learning disabilities. My name is Promise Wilson, and I'm going to be your host for today. It's going to be an introduction course to learning disabilities. Learning disabilities is a very, 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 very broad topic. So we are just going to do a little bit of introduction to what learning disabilities are. So this course is meant for everybody. When I say everybody, through this course, you might know if you have a learning disability or not. You might be able to know if a friend, family, a colleague, or anybody has learning disability. But the most important thing is it will help curb or it will help eliminate stigmatization and labeling of people with this very condition. So welcome to the course. I'm going to try my best to make it as brief as possible. So first, I will take you over the content of the course and what we get to learn from this course. First, we are going to learn about what learning disabilities are. We are going to learn about the types of learning disabilities. We are going to look at the causes of learning disabilities. We are going to look at the common signs that will help us know if a person has learning disabilities or not. We know the intervention and support options that are available for people with this condition. And we all equally know the experts to approach to assist people living with learning disabilities. And in the end, we'll just take a look at the resources and further reading. So, learning disabilities proper. What are learning disabilities? From the definition we have here, learning disabilities, LD, are a group of neurological or brain-based problems that affect one or more ways that a person takes in, stores, or uses information. Now, just so we'll be clear with this very course, learning disability is not a problem of intelligence. People with learning disability are not stupid, they are not daft, they are not unserious. Your brain are just wired differently. And most importantly, they are not abnormal. They are just special. They have a unique brain. So now the problem that comes with learning disability is first is the way the person takes in information. The way you take in information is totally different from the way that a person who has learning disability takes in information. We are going to look at this further when we proceed in the course. Secondly, the way we store this information is quite different from the way some people with this condition store their information and the use of this information. So what are the types of learning disabilities? Like it's displaying on your screen right now. You've seen dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, auditory processing disorder, nonverbal learning disabilities, language processing disorder, visual, perceptual, and visual motor deficits. And we are going to take a look at all these different types of learning disabilities one after the other. So at the end of this workshop, you have a graph of what learning disabilities is, the types and other things that are related to learning disabilities. So the first on the list is dyslexia. Dyslexia is a language processing disorder that impacts reading, writing, comprehension, and comprehension. Dyslexics, like people with this condition, exhibit difficulty decoding words or with phonic awareness, and they equally have difficulties identifying individual sound within words. Now, let's say I said the word cat. If you take out the word C, a dyslexic person might not know that what is left will be at. Now, some of the signs of dyslexia are they have problems with language manipulation. They have difficulties manipulating language. Like the example I just made with cards, they have example with this very aspect of learning, which is vital. Secondly, they have difficulty retrieving words. And this is very crucial if you have to do well in school or communicate properly. You have to be able to retrieve words easily. They are slow in the effort of reading. Like a dyslexic person might read a little bit slow because of the way they see these words, and the time it will take them to decode these words they have seen. I just talked about decoding. So reading the word and actually trying to make sense of it, decode it, it's the problem to people living with dyslexia. They tend to spell words phonetically, that the way the word sounds. Let's say you see them spelling stick as STIK. You can spell phone as FONE. So this is another attribute of a person with dyslexia. And like I said earlier, dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence. These people have like normal intelligence like every other person out there. It's just that their brains are wired differently. So the next on the types of learning disabilities is dyscalculia. Now, dyscalculia encompasses learning disabilities related to numbers and mathematical calculations. This one tends to be common because I've seen this on a lot of cases. I've seen people with dyslexia. This problem tends to be more of arithmetic problems, number problems. So some of the signs that a person might have this dyscalculia is learning how to count. People with dyscalculia might have difficulties counting numbers. Like in most cases, they tend to count with their fingers, and they are a bit slow when it comes to counting. They struggle with connecting numbers and objects. Like if you say the word three, they might have difficulty connecting three, like knowing that okay, there might be three covalent atoms, three pieces, three buckets. So they have problem with this. And they equally tend to have problem with number bonds, like knowing easily that 6 plus 4 is 10, and 9 plus 1 could be 10 too, and 8 plus 2 could be 10. So they have problems with this. So they tend to keep counting. If you ask them what is 6 plus 4, you have to count with their fingers to be sure. So they have problems with number bonds. Then they equally have problems to understanding signs. Like most times they can conflict less than for greater than or plus for times, like multiplication sign. So they have problems with these two. And they equally have problems using different approaches to solving like the same mathematical problem. Like let's say we are talking about substitution method in I'm not a friend of math, but they have difficulties using different approaches to solve mathematical problems. Okay, and next we have this graph here. Well, this is equally common, and this is one that the people with this condition tend to have more more abuse and more neglect, and people tend to label them because handwriting is quite obvious. So those with dyslexia have trouble with handwriting and converting their thoughts into writing or drawing. Like the image you're seeing on the screen, I'm sorry I have to use my phone. My PC just had issues at the very dying minute. So like it's displaying on your screen right now. This is how a typical person with dyslexia writes. So we are going to take a look at some of the characteristics of dysgraphia rather. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about a student or a person with dysgraphia is frequent erasing. Due to their poor writing abilities, they tend to make mistakes, maybe write over the line or under the line, or their writing is not always in order, so they tend to erase frequently. So if you see a child, a family member, a friend, or anybody around you that tends to write and then maybe erase frequently, this is a possible sign. Although you could not just tell that somebody is dysgraphic simply because of one sign, but this could be an hint that there's a possibility for dysgraphia. Another characteristic is inconsistency with spacing. Now, a person with dysgraphia tends to have inconsistency with spacing. They may tend to join two words together, or the distance between these two words might be so much that it will be obvious that there's a problem somewhere. So they have problem with spacing. They are inconsistent with spacing. The first two spaces might be proper, the second one might be too close or might be too far apart. Then they have poor spelling abilities. People with this graph that tend to work more with their photographic memory. So you write down a letter or a word, they tend to like take a mental screenshot of it. So most times, if they are in a hurry or they are trying to retrieve that word quickly, there's a possibility that they might make mistake with spelling. Also, they tend to omit words. This is another key factor that leads to the mistake with spellings. So if you want to spell covalent, you can spell COV. They miss out the A and then LENC. So this is another thing with people with dysgraphia. Then they tend to have unfinished words, like they could spell a word like covalent without a T or covalent without a U. They tend to miss words and letters. And the most profound characteristics of people with dysgraphia is that they have these things in their head, like they have a clear picture of what they would like to write down, but they tend to have difficulties pouring out their thoughts into writing. Like, okay, I have a very beautiful story I want to tell, but how do I tell this story? Bringing out what you have and writing it down tends to be one of the serious issues people with dysgraphia have. And we'll proceed to the next one. Okay, auditory processing disorder. In auditory processing disorder, patients have difficulties processing sound. Okay, first, this is not a hearing impairment. People with this condition will hear just as every other person hears, but the problem with them is processing. So they can hear you as clear as every other person will hear what you're saying, but how do they process what you just said? So we are going to look at some of the characteristics of auditory processing disorder. First, here we have they have issues remembering spoken instructions, especially if it has to do steps. Like, okay, if you tell a person with an auditory processing disorder, okay, you go to school, then you get to the library, then look for this particular book, then do this with the book, and then bring it back to the house. They tend to have serious problems when it comes to instruction, especially the spoken instruction. If it's written down or if it's from another source, it will be better. But if it's a spoken one, they may get this information at the time, but processing it and storing it upstairs is some kind of problem for them. And another thing is a patient with audio processing disorder is filtering the background noise. Let's say, for example, you're in a classroom and your friends are playing outside the classroom. Your teacher is teaching and your friends are making noise outside. So people with this condition have serious difficulties filtering the teacher's lesson and what the noise the friends are making on the background. So they have this problem of filtering background noise from actual sound. Now, like I said earlier, there is no hearing loss or any problem with their ears itself. Like their ears are functioning properly, just like every other person's ear. Now, the problem is from hearing the sound to the ability to decode the sound, interpret the sound, to remember the sound. So, like I said, now there are a lot of things that come with hearing. You cannot just hear something; you have to hear it, process it, interpret it. So, they tend to have this problem to decode a sound first. Like if I showed you what is an API, first you have to decode that I'm asking a question about a particular thing before you now interpret, okay, this person is actually asking a question about API. And now how to remember this sound I said, so you don't get to ask me the same question repeatedly, because this is one of the other characteristics of people with auditory processing disorders. It can affect communication, as that is quite obvious, because if you have issues decoding and remembering the sounds, it becomes a problem when you want to have communication with people. And people with this case most times will ask questions frequently and they tend to avoid conversations too because of your auditory processing disorder. Then inability to group the words heard. Like if I say CAT, a person with auditory processing disorder might just hear it as CAT and not the ability to decode that might mean cat, or POT that might mean a pot, is equally a challenge for people with this condition. Now, they have difficulty following directions and constantly asking for things to be repeated. Okay, I said this, I made this point earlier. Due to their processing difficulties, they can ask you the same question repeatedly. Okay, daddy, who is this person? Okay, you just tell me that's Jackie. And 2 minutes later, they'll come back, daddy, who is this person? So they have problems with processing sounds, and this is one reason why they tend to ask for things to be repeated every time. And their inabilities to understand what one is asked to do leads to non-compliance, which will in turn lead to behavioral problems. So this is another very important point to take away from this workshop. So the next time you see a person that asks for things to be repeated, and maybe he's going against some certain rules, or maybe he's not being compliant with some of the stated rules, especially with the spoken rule, then this should remind us that okay, there's actually a condition like this, and we should therefore look if there is a possibility that this person might have audio processing disorder or not. So next we are going to look at the next thing on the slide, which is non-verbal learning disability. Okay, non-verbal learning disability refers to difficulty in decoding non-verbal behavior or social cues. So if you came to like play with me and I'm giving you this look like, no, I'm not interested in this play, then you should be able to decode that, okay, this look is actually a red flag that, okay, you might not be interested. Or I'm having this conversation with you, then the look you're wearing should tell me, okay, I think this person is not interested in this conversation. This person might be interested in this conversation. I know the title, the name of this very learning disability, non-verbal
I think there is some network issue with Thomas. Let me check once again with him.
Hey, why do you use my phone? Okay, there's no maybe.
He's back.
Okay, sorry, guys. I had a little issues with my network.
Okay, no problem.
Now we're still in 3G. Okay, so back to non-verbal learning disabilities. Sorry, guys, I had a little glitch with my network. So people with non-verbal learning disabilities also memorize, like for example, math. Let's say 2 plus 2 is 4. They'll just memorize that 2 plus 2 is 4. But they actually do not understand the calculations between bringing two objects and another two objects to have 4. So they memorize answers and not really understanding the concept behind them. They memorize information too, but not knowing how to share it. Like a person with a non-verbal learning disability might memorize a very good information, might be a very good teacher. But the problem now is transfer of knowledge. Like, how do they share the information? So that's another thing. I say something about non-verbal cues, which is like facial expression, body language. So if I'm giving you a red flag, you should be able to know that, okay, actually, this is a red flag and this person might not be interested. So the early speech and language acquisition, okay, they talk like adults. These are the set of kids or people that you say A and they'll just pick it up. So they are super sensitive to the things you say. That's why when you're around kids like this, you have to be very careful with what you say. So they are very sharp when it comes to picking up things that especially adults are saying, for example. So they equally have a poor fine motor skill. That's like they have an ability to use scissors, tying shoes. This is one of the attributes of people with non-verbal learning disability. So they always asking questions to the point of being repetitive and interrupting. Like they could ask you one question over and over and over and over again. Like they could ask too many questions, like too many questions. And they struggle with, like they're extremely little. So you don't try to be sarcastic or you don't try to be funny with people like this because they tend to understand the things you say literally. Like if you said something like you're dumb, they might not see that you're playing about it, or if you make a sarcasm, they tend to understand it literally, and this might be a problem. So having this knowledge will help you how to deal with people like this so that you don't get to offend them in any way. So the next thing on the list is language processing disorder. For language processing disorders, this arises when an individual has specific challenge in processing spoken language, and this impacts both receptive and expressive. Now, by receptive is what is being said to this person, and expressive is how this person, like the message this person is sending out. So the language this person is sending out. So it's a challenge in processing spoken language. So let's look at some of the characteristics of these language processing disorders. So for language processing disorders, They have a reduced vocabulary in comparison to other children of the same age. So people with this very learning disability might have a little bit of difficulty with vocabulary comparison, compared to other children of the same age. And they have limited abilities to form sentences, like people with language processing disorder that have limited ability to form sentences because they struggle with language. They equally have difficulty using words and connecting sentences to explain or describe something. Like you want to explain something to somebody or you want to describe an event to somebody. The difficulty comes when you cannot put these words together to describe a particular event or tell somebody about this particular event. So they tend to have issues finding the words and sentences to put them together and relate or describe a particular event properly to somebody. So these people tend to shy away from conversations because of their condition. And most of these people might not be aware of this condition. Like that's one fact about learning disabilities. A good number of people tend to be undiagnosed. So they might be doing this unconsciously, but they will tend to shy away from conversations and they tend to leave words out, like to ask a question. So instead of answering that question, they'll just nod their head or they'll just make an expression. They tend to leave words out of conversation to avoid getting to talk, and which might show their deficiency in language processing. So they can say words in the wrong order. So if there's covalent API, they might see copy or API covalent, like you say it in the wrong order, like they don't say it, how are you, how you are, like they don't say words in the right order. They tend to repeat a question while thinking of the answer. This is one way to keep the words, the language still fresh in their mind. So they keep repeating questions while thinking of the answer. And they confuse tenses, for example, using past tense instead of present tense. So this is another thing to take home from this workshop. So if you have a friend, a family, or anybody that's around you that might be showing some of these attributes or characteristics, so the best thing to do is to, like, later in the workshop, we're going to list some of the professionals that you can approach for cases like this, that is learning disabilities. So, but what these people need is the love and the assistance and the care they can get. Is not labeling them or making fun of them or bullying them. So the next on the list is visual perceptual and visual motor deficit. Individuals with visual perceptuals like visual motor deficit exhibit poor hand-eye coordination. Okay, like let's say you're playing a keyboard and you're reading the notes. Like you're playing a keyboard and you have to read the notes. So your eye and your hand have difficulties working simultaneously. So eye-hand coordination and often lose their pace when reading and have difficulty with pencils, crayons, blue scissors, and other fine motor activities. Okay, like the guy in the image is trying to paint or something. People with this very learning difficulty have issues, especially with fine motor skills like that, like painting, anything that you have to do with your hand and manipulation. So let's look at some of the characteristics of this very deficit. Okay, people with this condition, they have difficulties accurately copying down information. Like you give them to copy something to copy down due to their condition, they have difficulty writing these things down. So this is also another takeaway. If you have a child and maybe the child is supposed to write something down and this child is struggling with this very task. So instead of thinking this child is stupid or unserious, then you should double check if there is or if the child might have learning disability. This is not just the only sign that you get, but this could be an hint to the possibility of learning disability. Okay, difficulty navigating school ground and other larger area. Yes, people with this deficit might they tend to go the wrong direction almost every time. So they might want to go to the music lab and find themselves somewhere around the science laboratory. So they have these issues navigating areas. They turn their heads while reading or hold up paper at one angles. You see somebody turning the paper to a very funny angle or to another angle or holding their heads up while reading. This is not an opportunity to make fun of this person or look at this person differently. This is an indication that they might be a learning disability. And all we have to do is give them the care and the support they need. So another thing is the struggling with cutting and pasting. Yes, we give them a shape to cut. It's really difficult to cut shapes for people living with this learning disability. You might give them a circle to cut, and at the end of the day, they'll cut even a straight line. They might cut and get it messed up. So they struggle with this very tax. So they have 4 page organization, which includes poorly aligning letters, illegible work, and irregular spacing. So, like let's say you have to arrange letters like A, B, C, D. So they have issues arranging this properly. Illegible words like you cannot write words in a way that anybody can see. So, and this is also another takeaway for especially educators and teachers. So instead of just scoring the child wrong or thinking the child is unserious, signs like this should hint a teacher or an educator that okay, there might be the possibility of a learning disability, especially if you know this kid in person, like if you know that this kid is sound enough, is intelligent enough, and this should okay, like the kid is better than this, is do better than this, then this should be an indicator where you get to call the kid and try to see if there's a learning disability. So the old pencil tightly often resulting in breaking the point. Yes, they tend to struggle with coordination, like coordination becomes the problem. So they have to grip the pencil so tight, and in most cases, they will break the tip of the pencil or they tear the papers on which they are writing on. So, yeah, they close one eye while reading or working. Yeah, this is common among people, and I've seen people make fun of people do this, but I used to be honest, I used to see it as being very funny, but the the knowledge of learning disability, the knowledge of the existence of learning disability really helped me. So the next time I see somebody doing that, I understand that this person needs help and not me making fun of the person or mocking the person in any way. So they tend to see letters and symbols like in the reverse way, like let's say the lowercase of B, they might see it as D, or they tend to see P as Q, or they can equally see P as B. So they see letters in reverse. So that's it for visual, perceptual, and visual motor deficits. So what are the causes of learning disabilities? What are the causes of learning disabilities? So first, there's a great percentage, around 90 to 95% of learning disabilities linked to gene hereditary. Like if a child has a learning disability, if you go back to the parents or the family line, you see that either the parents, like either of the parents, the mom, dad, the uncle, or someone somewhere in the family had a learning disability. So it's more, a family thing, like a genetic thing. So another thing is premature birth. So with premature birth, most of the brain parts needed that's supposed to develop that would really help the child with receiving, decoding, and transmitting information might not develop during that period. So premature birth could equally be a cause or could be linked to learning disabilities. So mother's illness during pregnancy, yes. So mother's illness during pregnancy, like let's say autoimmune disease, tends to affect, like it has been linked to learning disabilities for mothers who have this autoimmune disease, and especially it affects male child especially. So mother's illness could be a factor, or could be a contributor, or could be an acquired source of learning disability. So complications during birth. So let's see prolonged childbirth, for example, where there is the air supply to the child or to the brain is being cut short. And the cells need to be alive. And if this air supply is being cut short, this might kill off some of the brain cells, which will in later life manifest as a learning disability. Okay, illness or injury during or after birth. This is more like your environment. Malnutrition could be a contributor to learning disability. Let's say lead in water in pens has also been linked to learning disabilities, and the environment generally, like the environment, let's say in Hiroshima or Nagasaki after the bomb, the whole radiation thing that's affecting the people living around that area. So this could equally be a factor contributing to learning disabilities. And generally, learning disabilities could either be genetic or acquired. So if it's not in the gene, then it's acquired, and these factors listed could be some of the ways acquired. So common signs that a person might have a learning disability. This is like the most important part, because you might not have learning disability, none of the family member might have learning disability, but you might get in contact with somebody that has a learning disability. So with these signs, you should know that, okay, maybe this person has learning disabilities, and this will guide you, or this will motivate you to direct or refer this person to the right source, or to the right person that will give help. So some of the red flags or some of the indicators of learning disabilities, there are problems with reading or writing. Now, let's see, a child speaks fluently. There's every possibility that this child is smart, but there tends to be a discrepancy between what the child is writing or how the child is reading compared to the child's intelligence. So this seems to be an indicator like, okay, this child's strength to carry like 30 liters of water, but this child can barely carry 2 liters of water. So this should be an indicator. Okay, I already said something about problem with mathematics. So problem with mathematics could be an indicator. So the next time you meet somebody with problem when it comes to mathematics, this is not a sign that this person is not serious, is stupid, or is not smart. This might just be a learning disability. This might just be a problem with the brain. This is to show that this person is not abnormal, but this person is unique. This person is special. So instead of making fun of this person or mocking them or looking down on them or bullying them, you know that these people actually need help. Yeah, also they have problem with memory. Memory tends to be a problem. You say something and they have to actually repeatedly to retrieve that. So, and there's one thing about communication. I think we need a good memory level. So what you get to be stored either in the short-term memory or in the long-term memory for easy retrieval. So when once you have difficulties retrieving things you've learned in the past, it becomes a problem with your day-to-day life. So this shows the extent to which these people need our support. So they have problems paying attention, trouble following instructions, clumsiness, and trouble telling time. This trouble telling time is really prevalent, or should I say, is rampant amongst people with dyscalculia, people with the mathematical problems. Now, a person with dyscalculia might know it's 7:30, but they will not know how long it takes till it's 8 o'clock. They will not know how long it was before, like 30 minutes before 7:30. So if a kid, a friend, a colleague, or anybody around you is having this trouble telling time, you should now make fun of the person or tend to look down on the person or take the person for granted. This is a possibility of learning disability. And problems staying organized. Okay, this is more executive functioning. Now, how organized is somebody? So the next time you see somebody that is not well organized. Like, they tend to be hyperactive. They tend to be hyperactive. They keep things and don't know where they kept them. They tend to be looking for things and all of those things. Instead of making fun of this person or thinking the person is useless or unserious, you should double check if that's learning disability. So we'll move to the next thing on the slide. Now, there's a criteria for the diagnosis of learning disability. Like I said earlier, having some of the signs, just a few of them, is not a clear indicator of learning disability. So there's a clearly stated criteria for diagnosing learning disabilities. That is from DSM-5, that's Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the 5th edition. So there are a couple of things, there are criteria that should be met before a person should be labeled as having learning disability. One, the symptom has to persist for over 6 months despite extra targeted instruction. Let's say there's a symptom and we targeted this instruction to be very sure that this person does not have learning disability. If it still persists, then there's a possibility of a learning disability. So it's like affected skills are below age expectations and can cause impairment in academics. Yes. Now, these skills that this person is supposed to display, the skills this person is supposed to be very free with, like maybe let's say writing, drawing, it's quite below what's expected of that person's age or that person's developmental stage. Then this might be an indicator that there's the possibility of a learning disability. And this problem starts during school years, so it should be noticed during school years. So problem is not due to any other condition. Okay, so once you think of learning disability, it should not be due to other conditions, like let's say, for example, impairment in hearing, like this person is impaired, this person cannot hear clearly, because like in auditory processing disorder, the problem is not with hearing, but it's with decoding, comprehension, and making meaning to what is said. So this should not be because there's an underlying condition. So that should not be a factor. So this is the guide for diagnosing learning disabilities according to Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, the 5th edition. So we'll move to the next thing on the slide. So what are the possible interventions for people with learning disability? What are the intervention options for these people? How do we as families, friends, as neighbors, as relatives, as colleagues support these people? So the first thing is extra help. So we need to, especially the other 10 professionals, can teach your child techniques to improve his or academic skills. Tutors can also teach children organizational and study skills. Okay, now let's say your child has problem with mathematics. So the extra help here would be maybe getting a mathematics teacher come teach your child at a pace that if you understand properly, at a pace that the child will understand. Break down, like make the learning systematic, like by systematic I mean from known to unknown, from simple to complex, from concrete to abstract. So it should be a systematic process and not jumping from one thing to another. Then another aspect of extra help is, let's say a child that has dyscalculia, for example, the mathematics problem. There should be a level playing ground for kids with this condition. So if other students have, let's say, 30 minutes to complete a mathematical task, then this kid could be given maybe an extra 5 to 10 minutes. So he would work at his own pace. So extra time could also be a plus for kids with this condition. And let's say kids with dysgraphia, that's the writing disability. These kids could be tested or they could take their exams, oral exams, for example. This is another way of helping them maximize their potential instead of feeling like they are not really doing enough. So while others are writing the written exams, this kid could actually write an oral exams because this is his area of strength where he could talk properly and express himself well. Because people with this graph that tend to have problems writing, bringing their thoughts to writing. So instead of denying them that privilege, it could give them an opportunity for an oral test or an oral exam. So the next thing is individualized education program, IEP. So, like I said about the mathematics class, these programs could be tailored to suit the particular learning disability. So, your child's school or a special education might develop an IEP that will describe how the child can best learn in school. So, how can the child best learn in school? They will tailor this instruction. The curriculum will be tailored in a way that it will maximize his potentials, even with the learning condition I have. So, the next thing on the slide is therapy. So this gets more interesting. So there could be therapy for kids with learning disability, like stated it, like occupational therapy could help kids with motor skills, and speech therapy could also be very helpful for kids with speech problems, speech troubles. But there's another form of therapy to look at. This is like therapy, for example, therapy for parents of children living with learning disability, or it could be more specific, like group therapy for parents of children with dyslexia. Now, these group therapies will help parents better understand dyslexia. They get to meet other parents of children living with this condition, and these parents will share their experiences and the things they've done in the past that tends to work and what did not work. So this gives like some level of confidence to the parents because in the end it's the parents and the child. So the parents should be the one giving a good amount of support. So get to meet other parents and getting to relate to other parents and just the main knowledge that you are not in this alone. It's like a boost to the parents, and these parents will have and know better ways of getting to assist the child with the specific learning disability the child has. So another thing is complementary slash alternative therapy. So let's say for fine motor skill, a child could take a fencing class where you get to learn how to fence, or for the eye hand coordination, you could learn how to play keyboard where you get to look at the sofa notations and be striking the strings at the same time. Or when you get, let's say, music, for example, where you get to sing with the microphone and playing the drums, or you're singing with the microphone and you're still hitting the strings. So multitasking and doing things simultaneously might be a problem. So alternative therapy could enhance these kids' ability and will help them in the long run. Let's say like a child that's not well organized. So some of the therapies we use is getting the child to select grains or to count grains. So you give him a cup of rice to count the grains. So this helps the child to like slow down a little bit. So that is it for complementary therapy. So now, what experts do you need? Because you having knowledge of this does not qualify you to try to intervene in any way or even label a person as being learning disabled. It's not accepted. So this could be done after some diagnoses have been done and the characteristics have met the criteria. And this cannot be done by you or by just any person. So you are selected experts. This is their field, this is where they are good at, that you could approach to find solutions to this problem. So one of them are special educators. These people are they were trained to deal with special and unique children. So they will better understand these conditions through clinical psychologists, like the name implies, they are clinical psychologists. So they understand these conditions better and they know the test to administer to ascertain if actually there's a learning disability So the counselors, I personally am a counselor. So we get to interact with the child and we have this child's assessment so we could compare and if there's a discrepancy between this child's academic achievements and his intellectual abilities. So we have the pediatricians like psychiatric neurologists and we have the child psychologists. So these are people you could refer people you think might have learning disabilities. So the main idea of this workshop is not so you play a therapy or you play a clinical psychologist or you play a counselor. Is to bring to you the awareness of the existence of learning disabilities and to cope or should I say eliminate labeling, abuse, or discrimination amongst people living with this condition. So with this knowledge, you know better how to treat these people. And now you know the people you can refer these people to get further help. So these are the list of people you can refer people you suspect might have learning disabilities to for further assistance. So these are resources and materials for further learning. And also there's a free course on Open Learn where you get to learn about learning disabilities and you get a badge for free. So you just go to your Google search and type Open Learn. So I'm going to leave the links to these resources for further reading later on so you get to have access to these links and maybe do your further reading. Like the first link you see Open Learn. So that's like a free course so you get to have a badge at the end of the course. And this course is comprehensive. What I've done actually is more like an introduction. This is to bring to your knowledge that there's actually something like this. There's a whole lot of biology, a whole lot of neurology, a whole lot of psychology when it comes to learning disability. So this is more of an awareness creating workshop. So you get to know that things like this exist. And what should you do if you see somebody something like this? How do you know if this person might have learning disabilities and who do I refer this person to? So this is the main idea of this workshop and I hope you enjoy this workshop. So from here I can say we've come to the end of this workshop for now. Thanks for joining me on this workshop. I hope to see you in further workshops and I hope you learn a lot. So I am open to taking questions right now. So please, if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you.
It was awesome, Amit. So my question is how you get knowledge about all these stuff. Hello.
Hello, I cannot hear you clearly. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So my question is how you get the knowledge about the learning disabilities.
Okay. I've seen the question. Okay. I have a question from STMAG. Okay. I think you need to go back to a little research. There's actually a link between mother's autoimmune disease linked to learning disabilities, especially for the male child. This is a research that's been proven. So you could just check it up. You could check one of the links and you see and know for yourself. There's a whole lot of biology going on there, so it might take too much time to explain this. So I'll just make this quite short, but you do your further research. I'll leave the links to the resources for further research and questions, and you get to learn and get a course, like and get a badge, learn the course and get a badge. So please, if there's any other question, I'd like to take it right now.
Okay. So we have a question from STMAC. Mother autoimmune usually have no trigger. So
Yes, that's what I just answered. That's what I just answered. I just answered that now.
Okay, so guys, do you have any questions you can ask in Q&A section? And we can end this workshop. Okay, so we don't have any questions from the audience. Okay, so we can close. We can end this workshop. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for giving your precious time. Thank you so much, Thomas, for hosting this workshop. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.